Happy Monday to all you non-Garfields out there who aren't Monday haters. If you are Monday haters, hey, you know what? Happy Monday to you too. Even Garfield should have a good Monday, even if he hates them, right? Who's a Garfield out there? Go and hashtag Garfield on Blue Sky and let me know how it goes. This is, of course, The Broken Brain, and this is your Monday mental health tip with me, Dwight, your host. And I'm going to start real quick. I wanted to give a shout out to the For the Love of History podcast. TK is the host of that. She's been on this show. And I just wanted to let you know, if you are a contributor to her Patreon, she sends you individualized handwritten letters thanking you for your support. She just did that around Christmas time. And y'all, she's mailing this to the States from Japan, which I don't know. I don't have a lot of international experience. So that seems very complex to me. Maybe it isn't, but still, that's a cool thing. You should check out For the Love of History podcast. And if you're already backing this show on Patreon and you want to back more things, that's very, very important order of that, then you should back her. I'm just kidding. Back her if you want to better. So really, really nice. TK, she's great. Also, by the way, if you are interested in doing a show, you go back and listen. Most of her shows are just her, although she has a co-host at times. And if you want to know how to be an individual podcast host and do a super great job, you listen to TK. She is great. Now, let's be great here on this program. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about regret. And you've heard me say on the podcast before that regret is okay. Regret is, in fact, good. We've had a lot of episodes talking about different angles on that, talking about video game and game theory, how failure is part of learning. Not only is it inevitable, it is actually to be embraced as part of learning. I've had a lot of guests recently who have talked about that as well. I was actually lucky enough, I just had an interview, it hasn't aired yet, with Chad Foster, who's the author of Blind Ambition, who talks about losing his sight and trying to find ways to express himself as a high achiever while blind since the age of 21. And one of the things he talks about is not being afraid to make mistakes, both on an individual level and also on an organizational level. He does a lot of corporate coaching and presentations to help corporations do stuff. And so obviously I am anti-shame and pro-learning. That's a shocker for a therapist, I know. Can you imagine if you did go to a therapist and they were pro-shame? That would be interesting. I don't know what to do with that, but that's a thought. Maybe you'll do something with it before I will. So at, the risk of being repetitive, but it's not a huge risk. I would rather be repetitive about this than not, because I think it's very important. I have seen this coming up a lot in counseling lately as well, which is regret, in my mind, is not just a learning opportunity. Regret is a prescription. If you have regret, either for something long ago or something recent, or y'all's something ongoing can generate regret, even on a day-to-day basis, if it's something that you're struggling with. So regret and shame, they are our companions that travel with us in life. We try to get rid of shame, but I think we embrace regret. Every emotion, in my opinion, can have a positive application. Emotions can be energy that move us from one direction to another. Just watch Inside Out if you're not sure that there's good application of sadness and joy can work together. That's in the first one. They've got that down by the second one, guys. Let's not get into the plot of Inside Out. That's a whole nother thing that I wholeheartedly endorse. But regret is a prescription. If you go to the doctor and the doctor says, take 2 of these and call me in the morning, because he's part of an old joke from the 1930s, maybe, you're probably going to take them. And the reason that you went to the doctor in the first place is because something is off, right? If he says, let's put a cast on that broken bone, most of us aren't going to go, I don't know. I feel so bad about breaking a bone that I don't really want to deal with it. So once again, applying traditional things we categorize as medical, let's put that and incorporate psychological feelings and emotions under that umbrella. It's medically appropriate to look at this as a form of treatment. Regret, part of the reason for it, I believe, or part of the use of it, I should say, is to prescribe a change a reevaluation or an interrogation of the feelings that we are having about something. If I'm not happy with that something, then I can try to change it. Now, DBT, this comes from DBT, tells us that there are 4 different responses to not liking something and something that is stressful. And we're going to apply this to regret. The first is to do something to change the situation, not just the feeling, the situation, so that things will be better. So in other words, it's solving the problem. That is the first option, and that is what most of us think of doing. Unfortunately, sometimes we just stop thinking if we can't, or if we can't fix it immediately. There are lots of problems in life that take a concerted, long-term, incremental effort to try to do something about them. And so so even if we can't fix something, it's fixable, but not for a long, long time. That can kick into the shame, and we disengage. And by the way, disengaging from our problems is a huge contributor to addiction and compulsive solutions as well. Huge contribution. You can even argue that even if you have compulsive habits, if you're engaging with your problem, it is a little bit less of an addictive dependence problem and a little bit more of a different type of problem. So the second thing that we can do is called reframing. And that would be where we are attempting to change either our point of view, we're trying to look at something different, we're, once again, interrogating the emotional response that we're having, trying to evaluate if it is rational, proportionate, all of those kinds of things, trying to, and literally, like if you took a picture, you can take a really, really nice picture and you can put it in a really, really crummy frame and it doesn't look as good. You can take a mid picture, I think, and put it in a real fancy frame and it looks better. So let's experiment with that, right? Emotionally. That's what we do. If we can't solve something, or if we are still experiencing the feelings after doing everything we can to solve it, we move on to that. Number 2, reframing, which, by the way, goes for even if nothing changes in the external world. Is reframing can be, not always is, can be effective. The third thing we can work on is acceptance. And acceptance is a whole thing in its own right. We could talk, all day about. So let's do it. No. These are short episodes, the Monday tips. So acceptance just means focusing on what is it about the situation that I can allow myself to accept in my life. Not to like it, not to approve of it, but to say this is part of my life and I do have to deal with it. And I'm going to accept that. And I'm going to make decisions the best I can within the framework of reality. Sometimes that's freeing because we disengage. We just hope that the problem is gone, right? But if we engage with it, then we can sometimes do a lot of things. Take that. We've had a few episodes talking about chronic health problems and disability. And most of my guests who experience that will tell you that when they embrace the idea of building a community and asking for help, when they embrace the idea of assistive technologies or embracing medical procedures that help them, but they, would rather not be doing, that when they work within that framework, their quality of life increases quite a bit. So, and that comes from acceptance. In fact, acceptance, as I just said, can bump you back up the list. Number 1 and number 2 look very different if you are accepting your situation. Okay. Now, here's the tricky, diabolical, in this case, the diabolical behavioral therapy part of dialectical behavioral therapy, is that by looking at this and saying there are 4 things, we are now set up to look and say, what is number 4? Well, if I can't solve it, and I can't reframe it, and I can't accept it, and let's change can't sometimes to won't. If I can't or won't do those first 3 things. The last one is basically to suffer, that we will suffer with a situation. We will probably continue. Now, here's the thing. Even in suffering, we can try to find comfort. We can try to find something that will help us in a healthy way to relieve some of that. But the idea being, this is where I'm saying it's this little sort of manipulative, not a bad one, but a brain trick we can do to ourselves and say, well, that can force me to go back and look at the first 3 really hard if I know that the last one is I will just continue to feel bad. Now, this is where you can use that. If you tie it in with the concept of regrets being prescriptive, then you can say, okay, this regret is telling me probably to do one of these things. And if I go to the little doctor in my head and doctor in my heart and say, doctor, what 2 of these do I take, and call you in the morning? We are prescribing in a way. We are figuring out what that's going to look like. So there is a tip. Take those 4 things, combine them with the concept that regrets are going to prescribe something, and then go through those 4 things and say, which of those or which multiples of those can I use to find my prescription? And don't be afraid to experiment with things. Don't be afraid of failure when you're trying to address the thing that you regret for. And also don't try not to give in to the fear of it taking a long time, because it might. It might. And that is okay. You deserve the time. And anyone in your life, including yourself, who says that you don't deserve the time to take to fix and repair and address regret, anybody who would say that is wrong, even if it's us, even if it's an emotional part of ourselves. It is just because we feel it doesn't mean it's correct. Tomorrow, there is a new episode coming out with Kathy Bjork, where we're talking about not only her book, but her experience caring for her mother, going through all the stages of dementia before she passed away. So it's a heavy topic, but it's an important topic, because I will say all of us, heaven willing, or if it works out okay, the ideal is that we all will deal with age-related health things. That's that's what part and parcel to having a long life. And if we would definitely will also deal with it with loved ones as well. The population overall there's a heavy percentage of people who are aging, who are older, and so those things are very important. And she has some really, really good feedback, both accepting the situation, feeling validated by someone else, and also just the things that she found that were helpful, and the things you have to accept in working with that loved one, and parenting your parent, and just all that stuff. It's a great conversation, and that's our new episode tomorrow. I wanted to just mention a couple little announcements as well. I have a couple of appearances on other podcasts if you're interested, if you just can't get enough of me. And they are pretty interesting topics as well. One of them is just me. If you go to Utah Family Law TV, that's Utah Family Law TV. It's a YouTube channel. You can see the episode called Dynamics of Parental Alienation, where I talk about working with kids who are going through high conflict divorce situations with their parents, and also the parents too, and how alienation works a bit. Not Alien Nation, the old TV show, guys. Alienation, which is not quite as fun as that show. I also am appearing on an episode of The Outliers Edge with Niami Ashong. It's on YouTube. It's also on, wherever you would get podcasts, you can find Outliers Edge. It really turned me on to this show, by the way. He talks to a lot of different people who are either doing or attempting to do lots of cool things. And I appeared on an episode with another guest called The Hidden Costs of Creative Success, talking about being a professional who also, is a content creator or is working in various creative aspects, and the things that are useful to know and practice with that. So you can also find these, and I've been trying to update my different appearances on different media. If you go to dwighthurst.com/appearances, I'll be, sharing those kind of things. So I've been all around a lot of different podcasts, so I'm trying to find all those links to make them there, mostly because I think they are good podcasts that you should be aware of and listen to, and also because it's fun to share fun experiences that I had with y'all, because I love y'all. Don't forget to check out whitebirdclinic.org, which is the charity of focus this month. The Whitebird Clinic in Oregon. They do a ton of good stuff to help provide access to medical care for those who usually would not be able to access that. And we're talking full spectrum. They really work with people with medical, dental, and under the medical, also mental health work. They also provide a lot of mental health crisis response services in this part of Oregon. I don't have it in front of me. Eugene, Oregon. They have done a lot of work in that area. The whole society there, the whole community there has done a lot of work to revamp crisis response, to where we're not only putting first responders who may or may not have training in mental health in some situations where traditional statute enforcement or there's other elements there, and it makes it dangerous for the people who are being responded to, as well as for the first responders. So if you really care about that, this is when people talk about revamping systems like that, police or whatever, this is a great example of that. The Whitebird Clinic does a lot of work with a real application of that, other than just rhetoric. We hear rhetoric one way or the other without people doing stuff, but they really put their effort where their mouth is, so to speak. So whitebirdclinic.org to look at them. If you are not a Patreon subscriber and you choose to become one in this month, 50% of your donation will go to the Whitebird Clinic for the whole time, forever and ever, which is how long you're going to be a patron. However long you're a patron is how long it is. So let's make that forever and ever. Thank you for those who are doing that, for your support and for taking part in helping those charities. And it's really, really fun to send out those 50% every month to the various charities that people join to support. Be back at you all soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.